the global dynamics and what's even happening here in Ghana, how are we faring in terms of bridging that gap and ensuring that there is parity?
Well, actually, we have a Digital Development Compass as UNDP, which provides data to track the government readiness and in order to expand the digital space. And I must say that Ghana is doing quite well in some aspects, but not in others. For example, when it comes to the vision and the strategy, you are actually at a very advanced stage when it comes to that. But when it comes to looking at the business environment, that is still an area that is emerging. And when we look at specifically issues around data and how it's shared, that is an area where there's a huge gap, you know, apart from the digital infrastructure itself. So I would say there's some things that are happening and are advancing very well, but more work needs to be done on the digital infrastructure and improving access for both urban and rural dwellers as well as women and men.
So let's take some examples of where we're performing and the other side as to where we're not performing too well. Share them with us.
Well, one example is when you look at data. There are a lot of initiatives that are taking place right now to use more data in different aspects. For example, in the health sector, I believe that there's a lot of work which is looking at digitizing the health sector. And there's also work that is being done in digitizing agriculture, for instance. But all this is happening in silos. So the issue right now is how do we break the silos and how do we have more open data and more of a digital public good infrastructure so that you can build on the developments in one sector to also support what's happening in other sectors.
But in terms of where we're performing so well, what do we do to sustain the gains that we've made over there?
Well, definitely I believe that there's a very strong vision and a strong strategy for where Ghana wants to go. And this strategy needs to also influence the types of investments by both public and private sector actors. So definitely that is an area of strength that can be used to generate a lot of excitement and movement.
And Ethel, I need to point out that you were sharing your experience earlier on when the plenary was going on about how you've even had difficulties in terms of the discourse and planning around policy that would include more and more women. The government of Ghana is running the agenda to digitalize or digitize. Yes. Of course, you've dealt with that at the Office of the Vice President. What are some of the challenges, unique ones, that are peculiar to us as a society here in Ghana that we can clear off and to open that way to deal with the challenges that the UNDP is talking about?
Right. Well, first of all, I think that there is a willingness on the part of government to digitalize. And as Doctor said, there is a lot of strategy. The problem has always been cohesive execution, right? So we spent some time with the Vice President's office and a few entrepreneurs. We went to Silicon Valley to learn how we can bring those things back into our tech economy. So part of it, when you look at the tech business side of things, you realize that every year there are 4 countries that receive almost 70% of all the investment that comes into Africa. Unfortunately, Ghana is in number 5. Right? We have the same exact things that they have. Like Egypt, we have 7% of all the developer population on this continent. We have relatively fast and good internet. We have a lot of spaces, innovation spaces. So why are we number 5 when we could easily be part of those 4 countries that are gaining 70% of all the income? Part of that is homegrown investments. So there are countries that have created homegrown VCs that have built supported economies so that there can be people, high net worth individuals, who are investing in tech startups. And that's something that we haven't been able to do as a country. We've been sort of hoping it would happen magically. And so there is work that needs to be done in terms of supporting businesses and the startups that are coming out of the tech industry.
So for you, where do we start off from?
Where do we start off from? The first one is getting people to understand that coming to invest in Ghana is lucrative, right? Building, we do it very well. We get a lot of FDI. As a country, we know how to sell ourselves. But we're not doing enough to sell ourselves as a niche for tech startups. For instance, one of the things we do really well is agri-tech, and people don't realize it. So we're one of the few countries that really started building technologies for agri-tech. It really started really small, companies like Farmerline using SMS to give information to farmers about weather, and we've evolved over the years. We're one of the best countries in the world that actually do this, that work with small-scale farmers, but there is not enough information about that. And then we do not support the women tech founders, right? If it's hard for male tech founders to get investments,
how much more than
how
women?
much more? There are 24 women, the whole of Africa, that have raised $3 million. None of them are Ghanaian. We're not on the list.
Wow.
But we have the potential, just like all these other countries. And so the work needs to be done to support the companies in country, and then to attract the investments in country.
And Doc, I guess if we're looking to show up support, it must be multifaceted, of course, and part of that concern would be at your doorstep as UNDP, of course, a critical international partner for countries such as Ghana. What are you doing, I mean, from your outfit to empower more women into the digital and technical space?
Actually, we have supported through a few challenges and identified very specific opportunities where we have showcased the stories of women who are actually in the space. So I think in the beginning we need to recognize that there are women who are already in the space, and it's important for them to be able to tell their stories, because we want to see more of them, and they are there. And one of the things that they have told us that they would like to see more of is to have more mentorship opportunities and to have more networks and connections, so that they can be able to learn from previous generations, but also to inspire the generations that are coming up. I believe for women in tech, some of the challenges are similar to what men in tech are also facing, you know, as startups being able to access financing, opportunities, which is true. But one of the things that we're also encouraging a lot is to see more support towards women in tech, not just training, but also employing and retaining women in tech. So this is something that is very important going forward.
And in terms of reassessing the barriers, it appears that even from the domestic level, and not necessarily at the national or international level, there are some peculiar, unique barriers that we must eliminate. Of course, you didn't have that experience at all growing up, did you?
Well, so I'm lucky to have been supported when I chose to go into this career. But we've all been in school where the girl was the top in math, and then the teacher said to the boys, why are you allowing a girl to beat you, right? We have to start, if we're going to encourage girls and women to go into the space, we have to start with teaching teachers as to how to speak to and encourage girls. A lot of these girls are dropping off within the educational system because of what is said to them in the classrooms. And that's the first thing, that's the first barrier that we must get to. Once you get out there and you start working, there's the environments that you work in, right? The people that don't believe, and it used to be when I started my career, the people that wouldn't believe that I was a software engineer, that I could be a software, that I was capable of developing code. And there was a lot of work for me to be able to build up a portfolio for people to be able to see that I'd done good work. But that was a barrier to entry versus a young man who walks into, they automatically assume he's able to code, right? So there are all these little barriers. And then as I started to build a business, there were things like, but you're a small girl. Right, you're a small girl, you're coming to do business and ask us to pay how much. You know what I mean? And so there's been these little things. I think it's getting better for the generation behind us, but there's just been barriers that we've had to
Personally, what was your turning moment? I mean, who mentored you? Did you have the support? You were talking about how a lot of people, due to stereotype, would not easily accept the fact that we have a woman in IT.
Right. I was lucky to have then done some international projects, which meant that I had got validation from outside Ghana, which then made it easier to have certain conversations. And so, because I started out, I did my master's outside the country. I worked in a couple of consulting companies outside the country before I came back. And that just meant people were a little bit more receptive because I had outside Ghana qualifications, right, and I had done some projects, and that had helped. But For me, I'm going to mention two women. So Estella Kofi-Sowa, who used to be the head of Google Ghana. She now is the head of C-Square. Was one of the women that held my hand when I came back, and I was trying to figure it out. She opened doors for me. She introduced people to me. There's Angela Tremantin, who used to be the head of IBM in Ghana. She now went on to become the head of Sub-Saharan Africa IBM, and she's moved on to Microsoft. So these are two women that held my hand when I was trying to figure it out and opened doors for me and introduced me to people.
And Doc, if there's a lesson we can pick from Ethel's story, it will be about the need for fellowship and mentorship. That's lacking, correct?
This is something that is emerging. There are networks, and one of the stories that we heard from our conversation today with the young women is that we need to expand these networks. They are necessary more than ever. And now in this space where we can do things virtually, it's a very good call to do that, but also to start earlier, to start with the girls in senior high. To be able to have those conversations where they can see the role models and expand their opportunities. But more importantly, it's to connect their hearts, their minds, and their hands. So to create solutions for the problems that are facing our world in every sector, and to know that they can apply technology and innovation to any sector, including agriculture, the environment, and all sorts of spaces where the solutions are required.
And just a moment ago, we had a lot of women in-house here discussing their unique challenges. Listening to their stories, what was inspiring for you?
What is inspiring for me is that they're looking at the opportunities and they're making themselves available and saying, we are here and we have the solutions and we want to do something. So in a way, it's almost that they're taking their space. And that was very encouraging, and I encourage more women to take their space in technology and innovation.
Is the task much more difficult for those in inner cities and less privileged areas? Because the belief is we have a divide and then there is another divide. You agree with that?
I think there's divides everywhere. But I think the key message that came out today was that they were encouraging people to look beyond the divides and believe in themselves and to go out and be able to access these opportunities. And of course there is support that is required, and there are a lot of people who are ready to work in that space, and it's important to make those connections so that we can have people in Accra, in the inner cities, outside Accra, coming together to be able to actually make a difference together.
If we're to reassess our policy towards this, where do we need to start off from? For instance, as a sub-region, Africa, and even as a country, Ghana?
I think what has been shared is that there are very good policies already in place and good regulations in place. And now is the time to invest in implementing those policies and being inclusive in reaching out to all segments of society, men, women, young and old, and across the country. So as far as the policy space, this is a very vibrant space, and this is a time to invest.
So let me pick up your thoughts on education curriculum, because you've had the experience of studying elsewhere and what happens here. The belief is we're not there in terms of the structures.
Right.
Your thoughts on that?
Right. So this is a really good question for me, because actually I'm the chair of the sector skills body that advises government on technical and vocational education, technical universities specifically. So we're doing work around curriculum redesign for computer science. One of the big things for me was when I took time to read the ICT curriculum. This is JSS in secondary school, and I recognized where our problems have started from, because our curriculums on even lower levels just teaches kids Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, how to use technologies. Here is a save button. We're not teaching them how to think innovatively. We're not teaching them how to build. And so that's where we have a big problem. And then we look at the university curriculums, and a lot of them are 5-6 years behind. And so part of what we've done on that board is to bring private sector together with public sector, and the lecturers and the university lecturers when we design curriculums. So it's 10 people in the room, but half of those people are employers, people who know the skills that they want. And so when we design, when that curriculum is then designed and implemented, then the person who's coming out of university is useful to the employer. Or you're having somebody who's coming out that has been taught a language that was outmoded 5 years ago, and he has to teach himself, and then the graduate is not useful. So there's a lot of it. For the lower levels, there has to be a radical overhaul of what we're teaching the kids. And on the higher levels, there is an overhaul going on right now, at least for the computer science side of things. And slowly, hopefully we'll get to a place where the quality of our graduates from university match up with anywhere else in the world.
Doc, your take on education and how crucial it is in transforming the narrative?
I totally agree. It's very important, and it just brings me back to a survey that I saw that the Ghana Statistical Services did in 2020 on the ICT sector in Ghana. And one of the things that they mentioned was that if you look at people over 5 who have access to a tablet, a PC, or a laptop, it's only 8%. So if you're talking about education for the future, where a lot of the information is going to be transmitted digitally and virtually, then that clearly is a problem. So on one side, as we're looking at the curriculum, as we're looking at training the teachers to be able to teach, we also have to look at the tools that are available to really build the digital skills that we would like to see. So that is definitely an area for investment.
The world may be focused on issues relating to inclusion when it comes to the digital space, but there are outliers definitely about economic empowerment and other pressing needs that are facing women all over the world that we need to deal with as we equally look at the story of inclusion. If we're to start off by addressing these outliers, how do we complement what's happening in the digital space as you're pointing to?
Well, actually, the digital space is a solution to some of the challenges that we're facing, because if you combine and look at what technology and digital and innovation is doing in the agriculture space, that is already, a push to solving our key challenges with food security.
But usually the feeling is, well, it's abstract. This is, you're talking about technology.
No, this is
we want the
actually
cash.
happening. This is actually happening in Ghana. I mean, how do you access the information on the best ways to farm? How do you access technology information on where to sell your products? How do you connect buyers to suppliers and so on? So definitely technology is already a solution. So you can't say, let's deal with the core issue first and then tackle technology. It's actually, a tool for you to be able to achieve your other objectives.
And Ethel, I'm sure many people have walked up to you to say, well, if it's technology, we go chop.
No, but technology can help you chop, right? So what's happened, a really good example was, I forget the name of the company now, but they have contracts with like Guinness and big companies, and their app enables farmers to then sell to them, so they become sort of a conduit. So the farmers can sell their wheat, their barley, whatever to them, and they have a large concession that they need to give to Guinness. So it's providing, like she said, just providing solutions. When we started with Agritech, where it was a simple thing of, if we give farmers information about how much tomatoes cost in the market, and they know that they don't know how to negotiate with the middleman, right? Because the middleman goes to the rural village and says, "Oh, it's cheap, nobody's buying, so I'll buy it at this cost." So just giving them the power of information using technology enables a farmer to say, "No, I know a basket is selling 200 Ghana cedis. You can't come and buy a basket for 15 Ghana cedis." So technology will help us chop.
Okay, so let's be country specific in terms of the policies that we need to encourage. For instance, for you are working at the office of the Vice President. The Vice President has been constant on his agenda to digitize the economy as well. Which policy comes on top for you that we need to sustain and build some momentum around?
Well, if we put the startup conversation, because I'm in business, or startup and tech conversation aside, then there is the access and affordability. We already had this conversation, access and affordability.
Right.
The conversation that 1 gigabyte of data, that the goal should be 1 gigabyte of data should not cost more than 1% of the average salary in a country. Because again, we can see a direct correlation with more use of internet and GDP growth, right? And then there's a conversation about access. So can you even see, we had this conversation years ago about electrification and electricity, right? And we've mostly solved that problem. And we have to do the same thing for internet. When there was electrification programs everywhere and towns and cities and rural villages were able to get lights, then we can have the same sort of thing for making sure internet and mobile coverage across the country. I know that there is some work with the Ministry of Communications to ensure that the telcos provide some level of coverage even within, even outside of their remit, so that we can cover the whole country. I know it sounds frivolous that everybody should have internet, but it's been documented that economically it helps countries.
And this brings up the points the UN Secretary General was raising about product design and how we need to ensure that in that, chain, we deal and do away with patriarchy and misogyny. That was the key point, as I recall the UN Secretary General was talking about. Can you break that down for us, Dr. Lusigi, on what the UN and by extension the UNDP is expecting when it comes to product design and breaking the barriers?
I think it's very clear that representation matters. And when we don't have women in tech, when programs and systems are being designed without diversity in the composition of the teams, then it suffers. The quality of the product suffers. So for us, very important to have representation, very important to go out there and make sure that we have more women as part of the design teams. We have also more women in leadership in these sectors. So actually having more women and having more diversity in these sectors is actually going to create better products that are more inclusive. So very much looking at the representation angle of it, and also holding governments accountable for the commitments they have already made.
I was asking about the policies that we need to sustain here in the country. Have you taken notice of some that we're running and some that we could encourage some more?
Specific policies about inclusion?
Yes, so the agenda to digitize, we're rolling that out in our schools. There are some policies that the government is equally rolling out to digitize the economy. So I was just asking if there are specific ones that you've taken notice of that we could encourage some more.
I think I wouldn't point to any single policy, but I would encourage a lot more public-private partnerships around rolling out some of these policies because there are already players in the market, and having better connections and better platforms where activities and interventions can be better coordinated would be a very critical support to rolling out these policies.
Okay, we're talking about the women, but where are the men? Eto, let me start off with you. So the need for men to come in and to support.
Yes. Here's the thing. We're in most workplaces, especially in tech, there are a lot more. There's a lot more men than women. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having the conversation. So there is a thing that we call benevolent misogyny. I think that's it. Where a man believes. So there was a conversation we were having with an employer that said, he felt the young girls could not stay overnight and sleep under tables, because sometimes when you're programming and you're working on a project, we spent years sleeping under the table, waking up and working.
Well, that's how hard it is.
That's how hard it is. And he felt that he didn't want to employ the young girls because it's hard work. And I think it's benevolent misogyny. And we had to explain to him that if she is willing to put in the work and she has the skill sets, then it is your job as an employer to support her. And I think that's part of the conversations we're having. Sometimes it is not that women are hated, but it is just that sometimes people feel like women should be treated a certain way. And so there are conversations, and the conversations are getting better every year about how we include women. Now we have so many great examples of women developers. When I was in university, we didn't. Example be Farida Badrej. She now works with Microsoft at the time. She's one of the best technical architects in this country, male or female, right? And that means that we've built up a whole generation of women that can do a good job. And so we now have to convince employers that it's okay, that these women are capable, these women will put in the work to get things done. We just need their support.
Dr. Specific roles, what do you expect of men?
Well, there's a he for she campaign, which the Secretary General has stood behind, because it's important that we have men also supporting women inclusion, because as she said, women are capable, they're available, but sometimes in the spaces where they're not able to speak, then they have to stand up for them. As employers, as co-workers, as fathers, as brothers, as sons, they can stand up for women in their spaces.
Okay, we need to wrap up. Let me take your final setup.
Oh God, why am I doing that? Well, here's the thing. I think that in Ghana, we are very good with policies and strategies. Doctor said we have a lot of them. The work has to be done in coordinated, not just execution, coordinated execution.
And Doc, for you, is there anything we need to remember as we celebrate women?
Well, the theme this year is digital technology innovation for advancing gender equality. So let's see how we can look at everything that we're doing around technology and innovation and ensure that it's inclusive and supports gender equality.
There's a call for a concerted effort, and as part of moves to consolidate the gains made over the years, the United Nations Development Programme here in Ghana held a dialogue ensuring that women network, hear and share their stories, and also inspire each other to break the barriers and to ensure gender parity.
So I completed uni and I started my national service on campus, and I was retained as senior admin assistant at the University of Ghana. And one of the things even though I created the email, Yahoo at 2000, I wasn't active, I didn't even see the importance. Everybody's creating emails, let's go and create emails, right? Like what we do. So I created the email. But when I started working and I noticed that now I could send emails to faculty members and they could respond to me instantly, that was where my curiosity arose. And because I remembered when I was in senior high school, I used to post letters, go physically to post office, buy a stamp, buy everything, and post a letter, and expect a response in so many days, And then when I started work, I noticed that when I send an email to a faculty member, they would just respond instantly, like, oh, within a tweet. I said, wow, this is so great. This really is going to change how communication will be done in the future. So I thought to myself, really, even though I went to an internet cafe, I was trained to use DOS and other things, but this is the practical aspect of this, where I see that people could just respond to email, and it's changing how communication is done. I don't need to go to the post office any longer. I could just sit at the back of a computer and easily send an email and a response come. If that were not to be so, all of us here would have been going to the post office by now, as we are able to send instant messages and WhatsApp messages. So I started to become extremely curious about technology, and I really wanted to enter into technology from start. So when I was there, I saw an opportunity at Meltwater Entrepreneur School. They had just started in Ghana, and it's a 2-year course for people who want to be software entrepreneurs. And I thought to myself, wow, this is the right opportunity. I'm going to be a software entrepreneur, even though I didn't know what it was. And then look, so I applied. When I was leaving, my lecturer said, why do you want to leave this beautiful job? In the government sector, nobody will sack you. You can become a lecturer, you can rise to different positions. Nobody will ever sack you from the University of Ghana. But I thought to myself, look, like the curiosity that I had when I got that response instant, it started becoming real to me, like this would change a lot of things. And I want to be part of that change. So no matter what they told me, I wasn't convinced. I went through a series of interviews and I got into Meltwater for 2 years. And trust me, it wasn't easy. I had to learn HTML, JavaScript, imagine somebody from literally an art background But because I was curious, because I really wanted to do it, in a class of 20, we were 3 ladies. In the end, we were 2 ladies who completed. So I was really determined that I really want to do something with this course. So we finished. Fast forward, we wanted to start our own company, the software entrepreneurship or software entrepreneur. We didn't get funding for our idea, so I went back to square one. I had no job, but I had the skills. I had a computer, I had an internet, and all I needed to start something on my own. So I started a fashion blog on My Fashion Africa, and I was really serious at it. And the whole of Ghana, I mean the whole of the world, when you go those days, we used to even track our website, Alexa.com. We were serious into it. I mean, what else could you do? I'm unemployed, I don't have skills. What could you do, you know? So I was struck, my website was really one of the highest ranked websites in the whole world. And I got interviews from, even though I was not making money, I was just at it, I was just doing I was just doing that. I was just really marketing. My goal was that, look, I mean, I must use the skills that I've learned, or else I can't go back to University of Ghana and tell so now I feel that I'm back and an employee, you know. Yeah, so whilst I was doing that one day, then Ethel posted a link to a job or to a company that they were looking for a country rep or somebody, community manager, World Foundation, that they are looking for somebody to manage a $1 million project they're about to do in Ghana. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm unemployed, but I'm passionate about what I'm doing anyway. And it's in line with technology and entrepreneurship, just exactly what I've learned about. So I applied for it, and I went through a series of interviews online. They came down, and I was chosen to lead that project. So that's how come I'm into Mobile Web Ghana now. So I created a company called Mobile Web Ghana with a project, and we trained university graduates in mobile application development and entrepreneurship. And so we started that. We've done a series of training, and after 3 years, the project ended. And so the company became my own company. So I have to create new projects, I have to do new things. So currently we are really doing lots of capacity building when it comes to digital skills. We have our flagship project called African Digital Skills. That happens, it's an annual conference, 3 days conference, purely online, virtual, and we have over 60 trainers across 52 countries, more than 2,000 people joining us across the globe. And that is one of the projects that I'm really passionate about, because wherever you are, you can easily join. And after that, we record the session and have a repository on YouTube so people can go back, they can connect to the trainers and learn skills on their own. We also have a partnership with various organizations, like we have a partnership with the US Embassy, and it's a long-term partnership. They've set up a space in our place called American Corner. It's a space that people can come. We do a lot of events. Currently, we have an event ongoing, also in connection with International Women's Day. So I have to literally run and come in to be able to participate in this event. And we also have a youth media literacy program where we are partnering with GIJ and the Embassy, training youth in media literacy, how they can detect fake news, disinformation, malinformation, and anything related to fake news, how they can help to consume quality news and not spread fake information. We've also done some web technology and women empowerment program. If I start running through the programs that we do, a lot of programs. But the bottom line is that we really believe in people. We believe that no matter what, just like I started with a different background, but with a passion and curiosity, to be able to learn, to be able to join on a road, on a track that is moving, that is changing things around the world. Young people as well, if they are willing and able, wanting to learn, they can really change their lives using technology just by learning something online and being at it and practicing and mastering it. That everybody has the capability to change their lives, to economically build themselves and become independent and be able to help their various communities. Currently, as I'm speaking, we are working with a Muslim school, and during one of our projects, gender-based projects. We brought them to our space. We just mentored them for about 2 days. And I think that we encourage them that they can do anything that they set their mind to. And at a point, we went back to evaluate how the program has impacted them. I think one of them gave a story that really shocked me. He said that, look, when I came here, I was almost the last person in my class. But because of the program, I am the first person. I encourage them to love maths. I encourage them to love science. I encourage them all the myths about subjects that people thought that they can't do as women, that it is possible if they set their mind to it. And they said in their class, now the guys are becoming afraid of them. And I was so excited that just a day or two program of telling somebody, look, I believe in you. You can really do it. When you really put your mind to it, it's changed the person's life forever.
Sabin Sake was really birthed out of another incident or scenario where I was just in a library reading the newspaper. And how dare me? I was glancing through the newspaper and I saw that Ghana's factory, I don't know if you know about the Comenda sugarcane factory, it had collapsed. And I was like, oh no. You know, millions of dollars had been invested into that factory that was supposed to supply and ensure that farmers are making money, there's an outgrower scheme, all that. It collapsed, it was resuscitated, and it collapsed again. And I thought to myself, at that library, no way, I think I can fix this. So I closed it and I was like, I'm walking straight to my lecturer, where's the next sugarcane farming community? I need to speak with people. I think I can solve this problem. Yeah, how dare me. But yes, that's how it all began. And it has been me trying to connect the dots. Is it possible? If it's possible, what is the next step? Have more laser focus on making sure that we can find a solution to a problem that seems very daunting, maybe heavy, but just starting off from there. So at the moment, Sabin Sake works with a number, almost 17 farming communities across Ghana. And we've been focused on biomass generating communities. For instance, if you have sugarcane, bagasse, rice husk, coffee, cocoa pods, all of that, we take that waste, put it through a technology, carbon removal technology that we leverage, and then also harness the power of other farm waste that is found on their farmlands, and turn that into soil amendments. So I'll give the example. I work with a women farmer called Yawa, and what we've done with Yawa and other farmers within our network is to teach them that with a simple kiln, or it's basically like a machinery that we locally designed and fabricated. You situate it near your farm, you have your waste, you put it in there, it chars it up, and then creates a product called Terra Preta, which is basically for the soil. And then you can apply it to your soil at the land preparation stage. And then with that, you're building soil capital. You're ensuring that organically you're creating more microbes. You're ensuring that you're not dependent on synthetic fertilizers. So it's been us really partnering with the communities and creating networks of farmers that understand what it means to grow food more organically, to take care of their soil, and more importantly, navigate the climate crisis. Honestly, it's one of the most pressing issues of our time, and I'm sure you can tell from the scorching heat, or scorching sun, sorry, and the unpredictable weather patterns, very erratic. It's very hot today, it's raining heavily, there are floods, there's drought. A lot is being bombarded at us, you know, especially the women farmers, and as well as the rural farming communities. It's hard, especially as they are on the front lines. So for us, we're hoping that we can fulfill our mission of ensuring that food can be grown in a more resilient fashion, in a more organic fashion, in partnership with the community we work with, and just leveraging on technology as simple as a kiln, having biomass waste put in it, charring it up and then creating soil amendments out of it. What we're most proud of, really, has been trying to enable the farmers transition into more regenerative farming. It's difficult, to break old habits, and now it's really important to conserve the environment, ensure that you're doing right by the environment to survive and thrive. So we've been training farming communities, the farmer networks that we call the Regenerative Farmer Network, and ensuring that they're empowered to know what to do. How do I ensure that there's less evaporation on my land? How do I ensure that I'm building more biomass into my soil, mulching, all that. So we're really excited about that. And then the last thing we're also excited about is how we're leveraging, before the end of the year, we'll be launching our platform that would enable the farmers that we work with earn additional income from just doing right by the environment. So farmers like Yawa, who are taking the time to build soil capital, making sure they're not burning their biomass waste, but storing it into the ground, growing food organically, can sign up on the portal and be sponsored or supported or incentivized and trickle carbon finance down to them. And then we're hoping that the whole farming industry, the whole agriculture industry will then begin to see that farmers are not poor, and they should not be poor. They are people that should earn as much as anyone in corporate, in high-end offices or companies, and they deserve it, because now, if you don't have food to eat, hungry man is an angry man, and they're the ones doing the job. So we're really excited that in our little small way, in partnership with these communities, we can move the needle in that direction.
One District, One Factory initiative, amongst other programs under the Industrial Transformation Agenda of government, is designed to transform the industrial landscape of this country.
Government reports that over 100 of such factories have been set up with financial support from Ghana's Exim Bank.
Kasa Drupa is not producing, and the reason is lack of cash.
6 years on, where are the factories and where are their products?
Payment has been demanded long ago. It's more than 2-3 years now. But anytime they came, I told them there were problems that we need to solve before making profits.
Money does not like noise. Sika and
what is Sika and Pede? What exactly does it mean?
there's chaos.
So with all that's going on, what's the best way out?
If we sell the country and divide the places, so that one will help you simple.
I should simply match back to our universities. At least we can get some pounds.
I beg, we just need social dictator where you go listen to the people, where you go put the people first, like the way Gaddafi did.
What are you talking about? Are you saying the present government doesn't listen? Okay, guys. First skin ladies or dark skin ladies?
First skin ladies all day. First skin lady, you have the finest light skin Holly on your side. Everybody's looking at her every single day.
Exactly why I hate first skin ladies. I swear you can't even go down right now. One lie.
If you the competition, you go pick the ideal girl with the right.
Men will actually go for this figure over years. Everything in proportion. This is what men really come and have a seat. Relax. I've got it down. Come and sit down. Relax.
You like the controversies, huh? The laughter too, right? Sometimes we're almost at a fifth throw point, but it's a joy to be reunited in thought. This is the BMPS show. Join us for insightful and thought-provoking conversations on Fridays at 9 p.m. with a repeat on Sundays at 9:30 p.m. only on Joy Prime.
The BMPS show is brought to you by Jameson.
This is the BMPS show.